Brown.
Here.
King. Dubravik. Taylor.
Here. Okay. Approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Can I get a motion for that, please?
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public comments. Do we have any public comments? We do have a, here comes Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hello.
You just started.
Okay, great.
We do have a public person out there that we should probably acknowledge. We showed up tonight because we were bored.
Okay. Hello.
Would you like to introduce them, or would you like one of...
Yeah. Please introduce yourself in the public. Okay. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you for attending.
Okay. So, has everyone had a chance to read over the September minutes? And if so, are there any changes?
I have read them, and I would move to approve them as written.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. No public hearings. New business, the CLG. Hi, Erin. Yeah, it's fine. We're just getting started here. The CLG, the Certified Local Government Presentation. I'm going to just state a couple of quick things on this. I did do a presentation to the DEA, it was about a month ago, and that was done on request from Marcus Pasha and from Jerry Adams. They felt like we should go before the DEA and get their stamp of approval before we went to the City Council. So I did that, and they made a motion that they recommended we continue to promote the CLG program to the city, and they seemed very much in favor. I spent probably a half hour, 45 minutes answering questions. It was really a good meeting, and they all were very supportive of it. So next Monday, on December 16th, I'm going to do a presentation to the City Council on the CLG program. It's only going to be about 10 minutes at the City Council meeting. So any of you who are here that would like to come and offer support would be greatly appreciated. I made Jerry's going to put a little PowerPoint together for me. And that's it. I'm just going to speak on behalf of the HDC that we are recommending that the community, the City Council consider this. Is it the 15th on Monday? Okay, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so, and I don't know where I'm going to be on the agenda or anything, but hopefully today. So that's pretty much it, unless you have any other comments.
No, I just, for those, I was at the DDA meeting, and, she did a great job. She repeatedly, just stressed that, look at this as a tool for the future. And they supported it unanimously. And it's a group of, 10 people, and they supported it unanimously. And, the questions were good ones. The questions were good ones, and I just think that's, Jerry and Marcus were right, and that is a group that, they actually have some money, and, having their support and having that in council knowing it, I just think it's huge.
I think we'll just continue to chip away at that.
I will be there that night.
Oh, great.
I'll be there.
Okay, okay, we'll move on old business. Do you want to give us an update on the Tabs and Mitchell building
I'm
closure?
going to read to you verbatim the update that we got from the attorney on this last week. Hi, Owen. The court has issued the summons, which we have sent to our process server. We will follow up with the process server to see whether she has had difficulty effectuating service. There is nothing else for the city to do at this point. Thanks. Owen, just other than that, just said let us know when something new comes up. I checked with our utilities department before I left for Gaylord today. They did pay their November utility bill, so they did pay it. And, you know, the utility bills obviously were pretty low during the summer, and they're starting to shoot up, of course, with the weather.
So they weren't on the budget program?
I'm gonna say no. No. But
And there's no other payments regarding this?
No, nothing towards the tax, and not a thing. But they gave it to the processor. You know, we had stuff was, my understanding, stuff was mailed, they didn't respond to it, so a processor
Right.
had to actually, you know, they didn't accept it. So,
It was certified and they didn't pick it
I
up?
believe it was certified. I mean, I can't imagine it wasn't, but I know that it was returned. So I believe it was returned. Yes,
Could you include that memo in the minutes?
absolutely. I'll do it verbatim. I thought it was best just to read it to you.
I think the record should also show, the minutes should also show that 14 days from today, as far as our records show, the brownfield tax credits on the building expire. That's $98,334, plus the MDEQ brownfield grant of $20,000, and the brownfield tip of $67,500, for a total value of $185,834. Expires in 2 weeks.
Tax credits. Shame.
It is a shame.
At some point, in a later date, I think we need to continue to work with the city council to get them to appoint some type of a task force to figure out next steps. And I'm not sure how far we have to wait for that, because I realize this legal process is going on, but I still think this is something that we need to address with the city council and start looking other options for that building in anticipation of this, you know, this private owner losing ownership of it.
I mean, I personally have no reason to believe it's not going to happen, as you said.
But I think we need to be looking at trying to push the city council to get a task force together. And it can be whoever they want it to be, but we'd like to have one member of the HDC participate in it, just to get it within our jurisdiction.
I guess the goal of the task force, with the understanding that the city would be developing it, or I would assume if the city gets it, they're going to want to still try and sell it.
Market it.
Right?
No, I think this is just to help with, I think it's something we've had several discussions on, just basically to help come up with some ideas, and maybe all they would be doing is transferring the property like they did before, the title, but they would be involved in marketing it, for sure. And I think they want to have a local community task force to help them with ideas.
When we suggested this, we even thought it could possibly help the current owners.
Right.
I mean, the point is to have something viable happen with the building to save it.
Right.
Somebody from the DDA would be good to have on there too, because that's what we get DDA. And they just did come up in the DDA meeting, we did have a brief discussion on it. So I think, you know, I just think it's time to start moving ahead with that a little bit. I don't know how they want to do it, but we'll keep putting some pressure on that. So I'd like to have that expression in there as well, and I'll pursue it with them as well, and do all that, to talk to them, suggestions.
Sure. I do have a quick question for Ed. Ed, the three figures you gave, the $98,334 was for which tax?
It's in the, Mike, those are taken from the Cobb and Mitchell project summary that we had in the, 3 months ago, 4 months ago.
Got it.
So those numbers are in there, but I've got the memo here.
Okay.
I think
I can look up this.
I've got a copy, if you can't find it, let me know.
I've got that. Okay. Very good.
Okay, so moving on, there's no tabled items, informational items. Let's talk about the HDC members. First of all, we want to say thank you to Dean DeKreider, who's going to be retiring from the board today. Sure. bitches.
Oh, no, I've honestly have enjoyed my time on here. I think it's just time to step down. So, and I think, as I said, that Burroughs would be a great asset. He's got a lot of experience, and I think it's a good time to commit to it. So that's good.
Okay, we really appreciate everything you've done for us. It's been 9 years or so.
Yep.
Research, and you've definitely put your time in. Thanks again.
And you know where to find me if there's questions, obviously. So.
We appreciate it. The other people that are, their terms are expiring this month are Ed and Aaron. Is that correct?
It is. Ed filled out the paperwork and turned it in to be reappointed.
Okay.
One interesting thing that the process, the city is changing the process on some of the boards right now is, and I've got to clarify it for you and I can do it in an email, but right now they're making a change in that when they do have an opening, they want to do a public notice, just make the public aware that there is an opening before they automatically fill it. Because what had happened with a key commission opening earlier this year was someone wanted to be reappointed, and multiple members of the community outside of that individual also has to be appointed for that committee. And that was a unique situation because normally we have trouble filling these types of boards and committees. But as a result of that, they decided a public notice, and these individuals then were interviewed before council actually appointed someone. And I don't know if all the council members participated in the interviews or if it was just one or two, but the interviews also were open to the public. So essentially, Ed has let it be known that he definitely is willing to serve. And so my understanding is going to happen is in January there will just be a notice in the paper that there's an opening, and it'll be there for 30 days. And obviously, if multiple people don't step forward and say, I want to do it, then obviously it will be reappointed automatically.
You don't have to go through all this trouble just not to reappoint me.
I agree completely.
I don't need more meetings to go to.
Yeah, because you're going to come in and you've been serving, that sounds crazy.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, that's fine.
I don't think Ed himself is going to have to do anything more than what he's already done.
Yeah.
But they just...
You're sure it applies to the incumbent returning?
That's why I'm gonna get details and let you know. But I know in the case of the other commission, and it actually happened to them, the Wexford County Transit, because the city appoints a person to sit on there, and a person asked to be reappointed, and multiple people stepped forward asking to also serve on the committee.
Fewer politics involved there.
I don't see multiple people personally stepping forward stating that they want to serve on.
But you're going to clarify that for us, so that we know where we stand with that, because the January meeting. Okay.
Dad, you may have to put some ads together and put them on TV. So.
I'll endorse it. For the campaign.
Yeah, I'm also one of the folks, and I got my intent letter, but I wanted to share with the commission tonight. I'm not going to be able to renew my role on the commission. I really enjoyed it, but increasing responsibilities with work and my family are making it so that I can have to choose. And I think you all know I don't work in Cadillac or even Wexford County, so it's real tricky for me to you know, our meetings are a few, but it's still very challenging. And so I really enjoyed the opportunity, but I'm not going to be able to find that and re-up for another 3 years.
Yeah, and then parents can go to you.
I have some suggestions for people. Like if you have to give 3, that's my rule if staff ever leave the team, they have to give me 3 potential volunteers, you know, to interview. So I do have some ideas. I don't know if we want to talk about that now or...
Let's talk about that later.
Okay.
You know, I think we can...
And I'd be happy to help recruit, and I can talk about my experience and, you know, what it meant to me and things like that, if that would help, so.
Yeah, and, but we can also give you the few requirements that they have to have some kind of a knowledge of historic preservation of the community, and, they have to be a city resident.
Right.
Unless they're an architect, because we have to have an
I
architect.
don't know.
So, yeah, that would be,
Okay.
but, yeah, that would be the only criteria really, so, but let's talk about it afterwards, and we'd be happy to pursue those opportunities. And we have the paperwork now because we had it for Pat Riddle, so we can send to him.
Okay.
So we would need email addresses and that sort of thing.
I feel comfortable.
Okay. That would be great, and we'll work on that then before the January meeting. One question I do have is Pat Riddle, he did fill out the application.
Yes, we have.
When is that going to the city council, because they do have to appoint that person?
I'll get it to you emailed. That's why I've got to clarify, because, you know, we've got 3 positions now openings. We've
Well,
got...
I just want to make sure though, and just to clarify, I want to make real sure we've got one that's ready to roll right now. I would like him to be at the January meeting.
Okay.
So I'd like to go ahead and get the city council's approval on the application that we currently have and move on that. I think that's important. This new one with Aaron might take us a little longer and may not be ready. So if there's any way that his approval could go on the agenda for next Monday, that would be good.
Honestly, my opinion is I would ask to put Ed on there also.
Make sure that you have to do that, but I don't know if they do or not, but yeah,
Well,
clarify that. And if it is,
I know what
then it
I'm
should be.
gonna ask for a written clarification, because, you know, with the experience that Ed has, and with Pat Bertles, you know, to me, I can't, you know, it's so logical, you know, it's such a logical choice. But I will ask for a written clarification, and I'll get that to all of you.
Oh, for Pat, again, we need a licensed professional on here to even have the commission, so
Right.
the only one that there is, so.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
we just gotta get that done. But I think in the past, I know this is some new regulation or whatever, but I don't know, it doesn't, something doesn't sound right with that.
I don't know if it's a regulation as much as
Procedure.
probably came from council. They wanted a policy just because of what occurred.
Okay.
You follow?
Then it's.
I don't think it's a regulation as much as they want to make sure there's a policy in place in the event that multiple people apply for an opening.
Okay, so we're hoping then, once you get this clarified, that we can appoint both of them, the city council could appoint both of them in December. That would be
my
the
hope. Yes.
best scenario. Because when we meet again in January, it's January 13th, you know, we're supposed to vote on our officers and who we have at that point. It'd be good to have everybody here then. Yeah.
This raises the question then, if the procedure is they want to go through the interview process, that maybe they can do this together or whatever, but if there's a posting requirement, that might not happen in time for the January meeting. My question is, do I continue to serve until replaced?
My opinion, yes. But I will
We
get
get
a written
clarification.
clarification.
It's a fair question. I
I
think
mean, are your votes valid if we have to vote?
Right. Do we assume that that's the case, we should get an answer to that?
That'll be on my things to do list.
See, the question I have is whether you are at a term limit, but you're not at an end term limit, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, a lot of boards I'm on that you're allowed
Right.
2 to 3 year terms or whatever, so that'd be a little bit different. It's not really an
Right.
open seat, it's really,
Right.
Yes.
it's a little bit different than if there was someone that was term limited out.
That's what I'm not understanding about it.
Something to ask the city attorney.
Well, hopefully you get us an answer in the next couple of days. Maybe that's, they don't need to make any money.
Somebody had to go there, didn't they?
That is my plan, yeah.
Okay. And then you're going to have a draft annual report for 2014 that you're going to provide us in January as
I
well?
will have that for you in January.
That'd be
We'll
great.
have that for you in January. And I'll be, you know, it's, I mean, I don't know if this is good or bad, but obviously as far as true work applications, we only had one this past year. And I, you know, and I don't know if that's, I mean, does that mean everybody is, when they are doing work to their homes, are they doing it as they should, or, you know?
No, we didn't
I
vote.
think we had more.
Was that Hines, Bert Hines Jr.?
That was,
Dr.
you know,
Wolf?
that was in 2013, I believe. I'll double check the minutes, but I believe that was in
We're not
2013.
really doing anything yet.
But after this was a year before we got that.
We had the senior complex.
Bert Hines Jr. was this year.
Dr. Wolf, Dr. Wolf. No, Dr. Wolf was.
Well, anyway, maybe he's the one.
I'll clarify that a little.
Yeah.
I'll clarify. The Kirkland Terrace on the landscaping, that was definitely.
Correct.
But, I'll go through the minutes and I'll go through them. The reason I believe, Bert and Hines was last year was because when I first took pictures of it, there was no snow on the ground, and when I took some follow-up pictures, there was snow on
That
the
could have
ground.
been July.
Yeah.
Okay, there was only one.
Yeah, I'll look that up and I'll email everyone tomorrow.
Okay.
Everybody will know tomorrow morning when that work application came before you.
Okay. Does anybody have any other comments? No? Anything else? Any other public comment?
Yeah, just a couple of points of clarification. Mike had mentioned that the utility bill was paid for the building. Are you referring to sewer and water, or are you referring to gas and electric?
Strictly city utility.
City and water,
Yes.
sewer and water. So we don't know if there are gas or electric bills that are paid.
Yeah, exactly.
Second thing, I would question whether you're going to have a valid January meeting or not. If Dean, his term is up December 31st, and one of the requirements of your board is to have an architect on the board, if that doesn't get appointed before your January meeting, I can't imagine that you're allowed to have a legitimate meeting. Same thing with that. If Ed's term is up the 31st, he really can't come and vote in January.
Does Leanne have qualifications as the architect?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think I do, because I think just because I meet that 36 CR, whatever.
Well, I think it's something that you need to check into, and if you can't, if their terms are up December 31st, then if they have a meeting, you had a meeting in January, and you couldn't qualify as quote-unquote architect man, and Ed takes a vote on an issue, it might not be valid. So I think it's really important that
So
you,
if we can't get new members in place, we should not have a meeting in January.
that's my opinion.
I believe.
Except that, again, you have
I believe the description of this commission, my understanding of it was when they refer to the architect on the board, I believe they use terminology more like recommended versus required. And I will look that up and I'll email that to you tomorrow morning also. But I believe that the terminology is not required, but something more in the line with recommended. And I will find that and I will email it to you verbatim tomorrow.
What we really need is to get to the bottom of the city of Cadillac's policy
Yes,
clarification.
yes.
And has that city policy been passed, or is it recommended?
That's my understanding.
Because if it hasn't been passed, then we
Right.
can get underneath it anyway.
Right.
Third thing I wanted to mention is, if you're talking about the city forming a task force for the cops and Metros building, our biggest stumbling blocks in getting tenants or people to buy the building were an elevator, bathrooms on the main floor, and air conditioning was one. Obviously, that was important too. There was a third one, or maybe with the CLG grant coming, maybe the city can get involved in applying for some kind of grants to get those things done for the building to make it more accessible to tenants moving in. So, you know, I guess I would say if the city could start a task force and maybe start investigating some of those issues, it might be an easier sell for people to move in the next time around.
There's a lot to be discussed there.
Was it something maybe the handicap access?
Yeah. That was kind of the law of the elevators. Those are kind of separate issues, I guess.
Yeah. Was parking one of the issues?
No.
Yeah, I thought there was not that.
Well, that's in pretty bad shape.
No, the lot might need improvement, but as far as that wasn't a major concern.
The size of the lot was enough for the square footage of that building?
There were issues.
Depending on the use.
The issues were the handicap accessibility, elevators, bathrooms on the main floor. And then you've got minor issues like air conditioning, windows, other stuff like that.
It depends on the zoning.
Well, you know, depends on the use.
Yeah.
And that comes back to the question is, will the city then put money into that building to have it lease ready, or will they come up with ideas that they can recommend to a developer to do that and not put any money?
Well, one of the things that worked kind of slick, if you remember, is Rick and Tammy Grant's building, that the city kind of paid for fixing that up, and we acquired some of the funds through the TIFA, I believe.
Yeah.
So I think that's an ideal opportunity to do something very similar to that, as well as applying for grants.
Yeah, we drew it up. It was, yeah, no, I didn't get here until 91, so no.
Okay, all right.
I thought that worked quite well.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think the city recovered most of their money on that too, not all of them.
Was that something that was applied for through the DDA, or was it the city?
City took it on themselves.
I thought so too, because that's what Precia was running that aspect at that time, and I don't think the city handled all that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Public, thank you.
I just thought, it's interesting you were asking about like the gas and the electric, because I think, you know, like on a really cold day, we just want to go by to see if we see some kind of
Yeah.
exhaust coming out of it, so I'm sure it's doing it.
Yeah, it's because the water's out today, it's most pipes freeze going.
And no one's paying a water bill.
I know it might make more sense if they don't pay it.
Okay, is there a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you guys again.
Thank
Sharon?
you.